You ever look at the UFC glove situation and think, seriously, why is this still a problem? It's wild. From bare-knuckle brawls in the early days to modern high-tech solutions, the UFC keeps running into the same headaches: eye pokes and busted hands. Despite all the hype around new glove designs, fighters still end up on the wrong side of these nasty injuries. Let's dive into how this mess even started, why the UFC can't seem to fix it, and why alternative designs keep getting shoved to the side. Back in the mid-90s, the UFC was basically the Wild West. No weight classes, no gloves, minimal rules. Fights were brutal, and critics, including Senator John McCain, called it barbaric. To avoid getting banned, the UFC had to change. By UFC 14, they introduced mandatory gloves, groin protectors, mouth guards, and fewer anything-goes tactics like hair pulling and headbutts. Were gloves a good thing? Sure, they made the fights look more sanctioned. Commissions liked it, and the sport gained respect. But as soon as gloves became standard, two big problems emerged: finger pokes to the eyes and frequent hand injuries. Turns out gloves didn't fix everything. They just shifted the issues. Early gloves were open-fingered for grappling, which meant the fingers were still exposed. Punching was safer for the hitter, till you realize these thin 4-ounce gloves barely protect your hands. Meanwhile, fighters could inadvertently or accidentally on purpose poke opponents in the eyes, because the gloves let fingers extend freely. In Japan, promotions like Shuto and Pride used a more curved design that forced fighters' hands into a slightly closed position. People raved about Pride gloves. They seemed to reduce eye pokes and felt more comfortable. But after the UFC bought Pride, those gloves never made it into the octagon. Rumor is the UFC stuck to their own design for branding and control. There's nothing more gut-wrenching than watching a fighter eat a finger to the eyeball mid-combat. Eye pokes stop fights, end careers, and even cause permanent vision damage. Fans hate it, fighters hate it, refs hate it. Yet it keeps happening. The design of the standard UFC glove is flat enough that the fighter's hand rests naturally open. If you throw a jab with an open palm, those fingers can go straight into the opponent's eyes. Some fighters have a reputation for extended fingers, but whether it's intentional or just bad technique, the victim is the one who suffers. Refs try to warn guys about keeping their fingers tucked in, but that's easier said than done in the middle of a fight. If the gloves naturally force your fingers to curl, like Pride or Risen gloves do, it's less of a problem. But the UFC hasn't fully gone that route, leaving fans asking, why not? Everybody talks about knockouts, but broken hands are a silent pandemic in MMA. One study said around 6% of UFC injuries between 2016 and 2019 involved broken hands. That may sound small, but it's significant for a fighter who relies on punching power. Boxers have giant cushioned gloves plus thick hand wraps. In MMA, those 4 ounces offer minimal padding. If you land a big shot on someone's skull or elbow, you can crack a metacarpal. Some fighters have broken their hands multiple times and had to adjust their fighting style, relying more on wrestling or jiu-jitsu to avoid re-injury. You'd think advanced glove tech could solve this, but year after year, guys still step out of the cage with broken knuckles. How is this still happening in the richest MMA promotion on the planet? It's not like no one's tried to fix the glove problem. Pride's curved style was legendary. Trevor Whitman developed Onyx gloves that many fighters said are the gold standard. Comfort, support, less chance of eye pokes. Dana White even admitted he loved them. But the UFC reportedly wanted exclusive rights. Whitman wanted to sell them to other promotions so every fighter in the sport could benefit. Negotiations broke down, and fans were left scratching their heads. And then there's Risen's gloves in Japan, which some argue might be the best on the market right now. They're padded well, they don't cause as many cuts, and they force the hand into a semi-closed position. So why isn't the UFC copying these concepts? One theory is brand identity. They want their own unique gear. Another theory is money. Buying someone else's design means sharing profits or giving away a lucrative patent. Whatever the reason, fighters are stuck with older designs that may not be as safe. In 2024, the UFC hyped a revolutionary new glove. They showcased fancy tests, said they had a brand new curvature, hidden seams to reduce cuts, and advanced foam. Fighters tried them on and, at first, liked the feel. Fans were hopeful. Maybe this was finally going to fix eye pokes and handbrakes. Once these gloves hit real fights, complaints started flying. Fighters said the finger holes didn't line up well, the stitching frayed, and the gloves weren't nearly as curved as advertised. Worst of all, eye pokes kept happening. The UFC basically said, well, we tried, and scrapped the new gloves, reverting to their old design within months. Rumors spread that the real reason for ditching the new glove was pressure from top fighters who didn't like the fit. John Jones, known for eye pokes, reportedly had big issues with it. Was the UFC protecting him, or was the design just flawed? Nobody outside the UFC's inner circle knows the full story. But after sinking millions of dollars and years of development, the whole effort collapsed in spectacular fashion. Fans went wild with theories. Some said the UFC scrapped the gloves to keep money in-house and not share patents with Trevor Whitman or anyone else. Others claimed the UFC was catering to star fighters who can draw pay-per-views. Then there's the idea that the glove design was simply botched, and the UFC didn't want the embarrassment of gradually patching it up. Whatever the reason, we're back to the old gloves. Eye pokes haven't magically gone away. Fighters still break their hands. It's business as usual. If these persistent problems annoy you, just imagine how it feels to be the fighter who gets poked in the eye or the guy who breaks his hand in round 1 and still has to fight 4 more rounds. So here we are. The UFC is the biggest MMA promotion in the world, generating billions, yet the glove fiasco never seems to end. Eye pokes derail fights, hand injuries sideline contenders, and fans complain every weekend. Could the UFC fix it tomorrow if they really wanted to? Probably. Designs like Pride's or Onyx exist and have been praised by countless athletes and coaches. The problem is more political and financial than technological. Patents, branding, licensing issues all overshadow what might be best for fighter safety. At the end of the day, we can only hope the UFC wakes up and adopts a solution that works. Maybe they'll collaborate with Trevor Whitman again, or buy out an innovative design. But if history is any guide, don't hold your breath. Meanwhile, we'll keep seeing eye poke controversies and x-ray photos of broken hands. For now, it seems like business as usual in the octagon. And that's the whole story. From bare-knuckle madness and early fingerless gloves to big-budget fixes that never fixed much at all. Whether the UFC will ever acknowledge a better design, or if they'll stay stuck in the same cycle, remains the big question. Until then, expect more unexpected stoppages, doctor visits, and fights ending on a sour note, thanks to a basic piece of equipment that, strangely, no one can seem to get right.